Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Today in this lecture we'll talk about punctuation marks, how to use them, and what are their functions, what are their roles, and why we use them in writing. Look, punctuation in writing is like traffic lights and traffic signs. They help our readers understand what we are actually writing. If you're a speaker, you also punctuate your speaking, but over there punctuation takes different form. But concept is the same. Over there you use your voices, you use your pitch, you use your stress, rhythm, you use your bodies, your facial expressions, your gestures, you use stresses, you use intonations. Why you use all these? Of course you use all these to make your listeners understand what you are speaking. Exactly the same way, punctuations in writing, they are like stresses, they are like pauses, they are like intonations, and they make our, readers' job very easy. Just imagine, there is, reading for you with no comma, no full stop, no colon, no semicolon, nothing. How would you feel about? Of course, you'll be lost. You'll be confused. You'll curse the time like, you took up and started reading that. Of course, something like, difficult to understand, difficult to make head or tail of all, So, we use this punctuation marks. Most commonly used punctuation marks in English are like period, which you call full stop, comma, then semicolon, colon, apostrophe is there, question marks are, exclamation point is there, quotation marks are there, parentheses and dash. These are 10 most commonly used punctuation marks which we use. Let's start from period and then, onwards we'll go towards the remaining 9. Period, as I mentioned, it's full stop. Now, we use full stop for 3 major, reasons. One, of course, to end our sentences. We use period or full stops for abbreviations. And we also use them when our sentences, they are too long, for example, and there is no flow inside our sentences. So what we do actually, we split our sentences into 2, and of course, each one, gets comma, of course, in the end. So this is how, like, we use period, we use comma. In this, of course, lecture, I'll, show you lots of examples with the help of slides, so that you could really understand how these, punctuation marks, go and how we use them. So, some examples of period for you, like as I mentioned before, that we use period to end our sentences. We often call periods, as red lights, like the way traffic lights are. So, it's a red light. It stops your sentence, it ends your sentence. Like example in front of you is, Bill asked whether our class will be cancelled tomorrow, and our sentence, is getting period, in the end, telling the reader that, our first sentence is over, now you move towards the next sentence, and then full stop, then you move towards the third sentence. There is like a comic thing about sentence making, if you like people say that there are 2, writers who can write very long sentences. Of course, the one who is a competent writer, he knows that, how to construct multiple sentences. And the second one, is of course a novice writer. His period or his full stop never comes, earlier. So what we call that, he is not leading his language, rather he is led by, his language. Whereas the good writer is the one who leads his ideas, who leads his expression, who leads his, the language. Writer is the master. He knows, where to end sentences and where from to start, and, how to, whether to write simple, to compound, or complex, or multiple. Therefore, a good writer, his sentences, of course, always enjoy a controlled length. And a novice writer, he perhaps does not agree with full stops, so his full stop never comes. And he ends up with very, very long sentences, very, very confusing, and, making readers' job, of course, difficult. The second point where we use comma, of course, is that when we adjust the flow of our sentences. For example, Like on your screen, there are, two paragraphs, or there are two items, and I've marked them as 1 and 2. The first item, if you read, you would feel that here sentence is too much long and, of course, confusing, and it needs splitting. In the second item, if you, take a look of it, sentences, this item is in 2-sentence form, easy to understand, okay? And, if you take a look of the second one and I read it for you, ignition delay is the time required to recover the pressure loss from fuel evaporation. Now, full stop. Period is there. Now, one idea is over, we put full stop. And then the second idea starts, and again, there is a full stop. So this is how we increase the flow of our writing by splitting our paragraphs into smaller sentences. In other words, by introducing full stops, in our writing. The third function of period, of course, is in abbreviations. Now, there are two types of abbreviations. One type, of course, which needs period or full stop, and the second type which does not need. Let's first discuss, what abbreviations, need are, full stops. On your screen, you can take a look that Mr. and Mrs. These are two titles, actually. Mr. goes for the males, and Mrs., of course, goes for the, married, females. After these titles, we have to put, full stop. And then comes doctor and PhD. Doctor will also take full stop at the end, like D cap, R small case, and then full stop. And then if it's a PhD, then PH, full stop, and D, will be again after full stop, which actually stands for Doctor of Philosophy. So doctor abbreviated as D, then full stop, philosophy abbreviated as PH, full stop. This is how we do. Then comes, E dot, G dot. Now this is, we use abbreviation for example. When we want to illustrate our ideas, we write transition word, for example, and then its abbreviation is E dot, G dot. After E full stop, after G full stop. Now E stands for exempli and G stands for gratia. So this is exempli, gratia, E dot, G dot. Now dot is actually a full stop. Then comes ETC. When we are talking about some lists, for example, and we want to now then we want to introduce end in our list, so we can say like, ETC, ET stands for etc. It's an abbreviation, full stop will be there. Then comes I dot, E dot. When we want to say that is, you can say the meanings when we want to introduce to our, let's say, any term or any, terminology or any word or any phrase in our writing. So we use that is I dot E, and I dot E actually stands for idecit. I for id and E for est, we pronounce it as idecit. Now I dot E dot. There's a common error towards this EG and IE. EG for example, IE as idecit. That is that we omit usually as a common error one full stop. Like after E we do not give full stop, or after G we do not give full stop. Like people usually write E dot G or EG dot. This is a common error. Both, since they are two separate words, go by together, and we are abbreviating, full stop has to go with each one. Same is a common error towards IE, which is that after IE then we give full stop, or common error is we do not give any full stop with IE. As I told you, abbreviations, these abbreviations which I am talking about, they have to go by the full stops, period. Then PS, postscriptum, of course, it's an abbreviation. You have to go with full stops. Now, the second class of abbreviations, which I said, like, which do not, need full stops or periods, these are abbreviations, which we use in uppercase words. Like, for example, AM and PM, we use, they are uppercase words. They're not small case. Uppercase words, A capital, M capital, P capital, M capital, and here there is no need to put any full stop. Exactly the same way when we talk about our qualifications like FA, BA and metric. These are uppercase words, these are uppercase abbreviations. There is no need to give any, full stop inside. Like F dot A dot or B dot A dot or M dot A dot. There is no need actually. Second category, for example, there are international organizations, they are abbreviated. For example, United Nations. There is no need to write U dot N dot. Simply, U and N together without any, full stop or period. Some examples I have, given for you, for your reference, like UN, as I told you before. USA, there is no need to put any dot inside, U dot S dot A dot, no need, it will be superfluous. Then WHO, IBM, FAO, ILO. So this is how we do not introduce period actually in such abbreviations, which we use in uppercase. Now, this is the end of what actually full stop or period is. Just to recapitulate, we use full stop at 3 places or for 3 reasons. Number 1, if we want to end our sentences, we have to give full stop. Number 2, if you want to adjust the flow of your sentence. When we need to adjust the flow of our sentences, when sentences are too long, we need to split them into 2. Splitting into 2 actually means introducing 2 full stops. I mean, when you are making 2 sentences out of 1, it means you'll be needing full stop twice. 1 to end the first sentence, 2nd to end the 2nd sentence. Third way we use full stop, when we use abbreviations. As I said before, there are 2 types of abbreviations and a list I have given you. One class which needs full stop, second class which does not. When you use abbreviations in uppercase, look, you may ask me this question that Mr. was also uppercase abbreviation. MA, like MA of course is an uppercase abbreviation. I mean in capital letter. Mr. is also in capital letter. No, here when I say uppercase or capital letter means, all the parts of the abbreviation should be in capital letter. Like MA, it's not M capital and A small. M is also capital, A is also capital, so there is no need to put any abbreviation. Whereas in Mr., M is capital, R is small, then of course we need abbreviation thing. So this is how we use, period, or you call it full stop. This is very, very important. Experienced writers, they introduce full stops in their writing to increase the flow of the, written piece. And novice writers, they usually do not introduce full stops quite often, and that is why their sentences are unnecessarily long, and offer confusion, to the readers. Let's move towards a second punctuation mark, which is the comma. Of course, if you compare comma and this full stop, an interesting, quite obvious fact is that full stop is the ending mark and comma never is used at the end of any sentence or any group of sentences. So we say like comma is always inside a sentence and full stop is always out of the sentence. Well, of course there are some defined places where we use commas. Let's say when you are preparing a list of names, for example, 4 or 5 names in a sentence you are using, of course you will separate those names with the help of commas. And when you are using more than one, let's say one clause, let's say there are 2 clauses in a sentence, so you can separate your clauses with the help of comma. So there are of course some defined areas where we use comma. Let's take a look what are those places where comma goes. And let me tell you, in punctuation, comma is something which is honestly, after semicolon, difficult to use. Why? Because it has quite a number of places where it is used. Let's take a look. Number 1, we use comma before a coordinating conjunction. Now, what are coordinating conjunction? Fanboys, like for, and, or, nor, but, yet. These are coordinating conjunctions, and we use comma over there. Like if you're using, let's say, nor in your sentence, so before nor, you have to give comma. If you're using or in your sentence, before or you will be using comma. If you're using but in your sentence, then you of course will be using comma. Example, she looks very young. She is already in her 30s. Let's say these are two sentences. She looks very young. She is already in her 30s. If you want to combine these two sentences as and want to make compound sentence, let's do it. She looks very young, but she is already in her 30s. Now, before but, we have to put comma. Please keep in mind, coordinating conjunctions, fanboys as a mnemonic. These coordinating conjunction formula is first comma and then coordinating conjunction. As we used but in this sentence, we combine these two sentences by using but. Before but, comma has to be there. Before and, comma, has to be there. Before or nor, comma has to be there. Do not forget this. So, coordinating conjunction, when you use first comma, then coordinating conjunctions. Now, one more important thing. Sometimes we do not use comma in coordinating, in compound sentence. When it's not likely, that your sentence will be misread, for example. If that fear is not there, then you can omit comma and sentence will be, of course, read with no confusion. For example, the plane took off and we were on our way. Now, in this sentence, of course, we're using and as coordinating conjunction. But if you compare this sentence with the previous one where we talked about that somebody looks young and someone is in 30s, over there we use but. Before but we put comma. Why? If we deleted comma, chances were that the sentence would be misread. But in this sentence, we used and, we omitted comma, flow was there. There was no confusion. So in such cases where you feel that even if I do not give comma, where comma should go, even if I do not give comma, and there will be no fear, sentence will not be misread, no problem, you go ahead, you can omit comma. Let's see the next one. Use a comma after an introductory clause or phrase. After an introductory clause or phrase. Let's take a look. What is an introductory clause? Sentence, when Sam looked in the path near the school building. Now, when Sam looked into the path near the school building is introductory clause. After this, we put comma. He found his lost book. And then comes the second clause. So, when you are using introductory clauses, after introductory clauses, you are going to put comma and then the independent clause, of course, will come next and, of course, a full stop. Next place where we use comma is use a comma after an introductory participle phrase that describes the noun or pronoun that follows. Now, once again, let's take a look of what is a participle phrase. If you remember, participle phrase means, for example, let's say typing is a participle phrase. Participle, present participle. And when you start your sentence from a present participle, that we call as that you are starting your sentence with a participle phrase. Example is there, struggling with large amounts of homework, the class feared the exam. Now, these are two clauses. The first clause is participle phrase clause. After participle phrase clause, you put comma and then comes the second clause. One more example. Having seen pictures of the beach, now this much is a present participle phrase clause. And then comes the next clause. The children eagerly looked forward to summer. Now, between these two clauses, you are going to put comma. Let's move towards the next item. Next item is use in semi-parenthetical clause. If you remember, when we were studying modifiers, and we studied 4 types of modifiers. One type was, appositives. Appositives means when you sandwich some extra detail, let's say between subject and verb. Like example, if I give you, Jinnah, the founding father of Pakistan, was born in Karachi. Now, the founding father of Pakistan is a sandwiched information, which is of course about Muhammad Ali Jinnah, okay? So, if that is the case, you are using appositives or you are using semi-parenthetical clause. Look, we call it semi-parenthetical. If it's a parenthetical clause, of course, we'll be using brackets. It's a semi-parenthetical. At the place of brackets, we are putting, 2 commas. Like example goes, Bill is here. Now we want to add extra information about Bill. So after Bill, we'll put comma. Then will come the sandwiched part of the sentence. Again, comma. And then verb and the remaining, elements. So the full-fledged sentence is, Bill, the tall one, is here. And the second sentence I've already read for you. Jinnah, comma, the founding father of Pakistan, comma, was a lawyer by profession. So this is how we use comma. Next item, next place where we use comma is, use a comma between all items in a series. As I mentioned before, that when you are writing more than one item and you are introducing series, like series of items in your sentence, of course that series of items or those items will be separated from each other with the help of course, commas. Like the sentence is, I brought my books, comma, papers, comma, and computer to the classroom. Now let's see the next place where we put comma. Use a comma between multiple adjectives. Example is there. Sam has become a strong, confident, independent man. Now in this sentence, multiple adjectives. Usually we use one adjective for a noun, but you can try more than one adjective for noun. So if you're using more than one adjective for noun, which we call as multiple adjectives, so you separate multiple adjectives with the help of, commas. Like you have seen an example. After strong, this is one adjective, comma. Then we said confident, again, comma. And then was the third adjective, independent and man. Now, after independent, there is no need to put comma. So, 3 adjectives we used and 2 commas we introduced to separate, these adjectives. There are some cumulative adjectives also. In cumulative adjectives, we do not introduce commas. For example, if you talk about the structure of eyes, you may talk about the color, you may talk about the shape of eyes, you may talk about the size of eyes. Now, these are when one word for the shape, one word for the color, one word for, let's say, the size, 3 words you are using, of course, these 3 will be adjectives. These are called cumulative adjectives, and we do not need any comma inside to separate. An example is there, interesting one. You can understand from this example that difference between multiple and cumulative is what, and why we do not put comma inside the cumulative adjectives. Example is 3 large grey trucks. Now in this 3 large grey trucks, 3 number, large size, grey color. So if that is the case, very 3 different features actually we talked about, okay? Therefore, there is no need to put comma inside. So 3 large grey trucks tool down the street. This is how we'll do it. Let's go ahead and see where we use comma. We use a comma in a dialogue. Like when we introduce direct speech in our text, and let's say we say the teacher said, and then comes comma, and the direct speech, starts. Like example is there, she said hello. Now here, she said comes comma, and then starts the direct speech. Then we also use commas for dates, for example. Like month comes first, then comes day. After day, we put comma, and then comes year. For example, December 25, 2006 is the date. December, full name. After the number 25, we'll put comma, and then year will come, and then full stop. We use comma for titles also. Titles means when you're using, let's say, someone's name, plus, let's say you are trying his qualification, for example. Like Joe Smith, PhD. These 2, pieces of information you want to write side by side. Inside these 2, after name, you will put comma, and then you'll write, his PhD. Like Joe Smith, comma, PhD. Now, inside the PhD, of course, there will not be comma. We've already talked about PhD is an abbreviation, Doctor of Philosophy. And abbreviations, we put full stops, actually, periods. Then we use commas for informal letter salutation. Salutation means in your letter when you write Dear Sir or Dear Imran or Dear Irfan, you know, this part of a letter is called, you know, salutation, okay? Of course, letters are formal or informal, but I'm talking about informal. In informal letter salutation, you know, we put comma. For example, Dear Sir. After Dear Sir, comma. And then comes a letter closing when we say yours truly or yours sincerely or yours faithfully, you know, which we call as closing notation of your letter. Over there also, we put comma. Yours truly, comma. Yours sincerely, comma. Yours faithfully, comma. And then comes inverted names. We use comma. If you remember in your, you know, last lecture when we were talking about how to document sources for your research, over there, you know, we studied in bibliographic note. In bibliographic notes, you know, we do not write author's name this way, first name first, second name second, third name third, rather. We write surname first and then first name second. I mean, to separate this, let's say if the name is A.J. Smith, Abraham Jr. Smith. Smith is surname, so Smith will come first. And then we'll put comma. And then first and second name, Abraham Jr. We put comma just to tell our readers that when you read it, you will not read this way Smith Abraham Jr. now. Comma means the same thing, that this is actually surname coming first. That's why we are putting comma. So you read the same way, Abraham Jr. Smith. Okay? So when inverted names we introduce in our writing, and of course in research writing we use inverted names, surname first, remaining name second. So we separate surname from the first and second name with the help of comma. Another use of comma is use comma to set off numbers. Let's say if you're writing some numbers, it could be like, you know, some figures you are writing, okay? And there are some digits inside. So you count from the right. Let's say it's 23 and then there are 3 zeros with it. 23 and 3 zeros. You count from the right side like 0, 0, 0. After 3 digits you put comma. And then 23. If there are more digits, for example, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you count from the 9 side like 9, 8, 7, comma. Then 6, 5, 4, comma. And then 3, 2, 1. And of course, at the start, you're not going to use comma. So to separate digits, after 3 digits, counting from the right side, we put comma. Don't count from the left side. If you count from the left side, then 2, 3, 0. After 2, 3, 0 will be comma, which is common error, wrong. You count from the right side, 0, 0, 0, comma, and then 23. Like 23,000. If that's the, you know, figure, so this is how, like, you know, you write it. And then we use commas to set off contrasting elements. This is an interesting use of comma. Take a look of an example. Unlike Robert, Viola loved speech contests. So unlike Robert, this is contrasting statement, you know. Robert does not like speech contests. Viola likes speech contests. To separate these two, we put commas, like unlike Robert, comma, Viola likes speech contests. One more example. We use alcohol, never water, to sterilize. We use alcohol, never water. So we are separating, you know, alcohol and water. And there is, you know, the contrasting element that don't use water, use alcohol to sterilize, you know, things. So this is how we do it. Next, use commas to set off transitional expressions. Now, in compound sentence making, we use coordinating conjunctions, which we have already talked about. That coordinating conjunctions always, you know, get comma before and then the coordinating conjunctions and the remaining, you know, part of the sentence goes. There are, like, you know, which we call as conjunctive adverbs, you know, which of course are called as transitions, like therefore, however, nevertheless, for instance, for example, otherwise, likewise. So all these are what? Conjunctive adverbs. We also call them transitions. Now, interesting thing is, if you are using transitions at the start of a sentence, Okay, let me put it this way, that these transitions you can use at two places. One, at the start of a sentence. Second, inside the sentence. Situation will be different. If you're using these transitions at the start of a sentence, let's say you are using therefore at the start of a sentence. So after this transition, therefore, you will put comma. But if you're using these transitions inside a sentence, then there'll be one more change. That change will be that first you will put semicolon, then transition, and then comma. Like therefore, if it comes at the start, therefore, comma. But if therefore comes inside a sentence, before therefore, semicolon, therefore, comma. Examples for you. Like in the first sentence, as a matter of fact. This as a matter of fact is a transition thing. And after this, comma is there. Many of the musicians have hearing problems. Second one, therefore. Therefore is also a transition thing. After this, we put comma and then the remaining sentence. They frequently need hearing assistance. The second case which I discussed with you, where semicolon also comes in, example for you, natural foods are not always salt-free. Now I want to use, for example, here inside, natural foods are not always salt-free, semicolon, then comes transition thing, for examples, and then the remaining part of the sentence. So this is how we put commas when we use transitional expressions. Next, three more places, where we use commas. Like use commas to set off direct address, question tags, and interjections. Example, forgive us, Professor, for being late in sending our homework. Now this is direct address. Forgive us, Professor. Now, I can say the sentence the same this way also. Forgive us for being late. Then it will, of course, it will not be a direct address. When I introduce a word inside Professor, then it becomes, of course, a direct address. Forgive us, comma, Professor, comma, and then the remaining part of the sentence. Another example, yes, but don't do it again. After yes, you'll put comma and the remaining part of the sentence. Then I said, we use comma when we use question tags. Question tags are actually confirmations. Like if I say, I'm your teacher, ain't I? Now, this ain't I is a question tag. And, of course, before ain't I, we'll be using, commas. Example is there. This is the third time you have been late. Isn't it? Now, isn't it is a question tag. Before isn't it, we put, of course, comma. And the third thing I talked about, interjections, when we, use in our sentences. Like, example, well, we sometimes have lots of other homework to do. Now, after well, you put comma. So, this is, another way of using, commas. Second last place where we use comma is use commas to avoid confusion. If you remember, there was a point when we were talking about commas and I said that you can omit comma if you think that, there are no chances of confusion, you can omit comma. If there are chances of confusion, then you have to, of course, introduce, comma inside. Like, example is, to err is human, to forgive divine. Now, this one is a sentence. To err is human, to forgive is divine. Actually, sentence was this way. To err is human, this is one sentence. To forgive is divine, second sentence. But is a verb which we are using in both of the clauses. And we don't want to repeat our verb. When we don't want to repeat our verb, like to err is human, to forgive is we want to delete. When we delete is, we introduce comma over there so that, reader may not be confused about our structure. So this is how we, introduce comma to avoid confusion. If there are no chances of confusion, then of course you can omit comma, doesn't matter. Okay, so this is how, we use comma in our, sentences. Let's now move towards our third important punctuation mark, which is, I believe, most difficult one to use. And at times, with some students, it's difficult to understand as well. Semicolon. Semicolon, its shape, of course, it's sort of like comma with a dot on it. We use semicolons when we want to introduce contrast in our sentences. Then semicolon, of course, is over there. Frankly speaking, when we are using conjunctive adverbs, semicolon is going to be very much there. Just to give you some places and some examples to understand like how semicolon functions in our sentences as punctuation mark. Let's say there is one sentence, grandma stays up too late. Let's expand it a bit further. Grandma stays up too late. One sentence. She's afraid she's going to miss something. These are two sentences. First one, she stays up too late. And second one, she's afraid she's going to miss something. If we want to combine these two to make one sentence, now we can use different steps. Put these two together, divided by a comma. If we put these two together and we separate them with the help of a comma, then of course there'll be a serious error which we call as a blunder, comma, splice error. Of course you have read this and I know you know that. I mean, the sentence will go, of course it will be a faulty sentence. Fault will be comma, splice. Take a look. Grandma stays up too late, comma, she's afraid she's going to miss something. So this is how we have combined these two sentences with the help of a comma, which of course is the faulty combination. What to do now? You can use a coordinating conjunction. Like you can use as to, correct that comma splice. Like grandma stays up too late, comma, as she. Now here I introduce as to make it compound sentence with the help of coordinating conjunction. We can rather strengthen this combination by introducing subordinating, conjunction. Like because you can try. Like the sentence will go, grandma stays up too late because she's afraid she's going to miss something. Look, we combine these two sentences first by putting, comma inside. And putting comma inside, there was an error, comma supplies. And then we introduced coordinating conjunction. That also didn't serve the purpose. It was as, actually. Now we are trying subordinating conjunction because, and we combine the sentence. Of course, meanings are there. This is better than to before. If I here introduce semicolon, then you would see that your sentence will be in the best possible form. No comma, no coordinating conjunction, no subordinating conjunction. Okay? Just use semicolon and your sentence will be absolutely perfect. Take a look. Grandma stays up too late and we put here what? Semicolon. She's afraid she's going to miss something. So this is how, we use semicolons. Where comma does not serve the purpose, semicolon. Where coordinating conjunction does not serve the purpose or subordinating conjunction does not, serve the purpose, then semicolon, of course, will come. Semicolon, of course, is stronger than a comma. An example there, peace is difficult, war is hell. These are, of course, two separate sentences. One, we are talking about peace. Second, we are talking about, war. Two different sentences we are combining. Of course, the major theme is the same. I mean, peace opposite is war, war's opposite is peace. So there is some relevance. That's why, we are putting these two sentences together. And we are not introducing any comma inside. We are not introducing any coordinating conjunction. We are not introducing, any subordinating conjunction. Just semicolon and idea will go. So this is one place, where we use semicolon. Second place and the last place for the semicolon is conjunctive adverb. Like we have seen in comma use also, conjunctive adverbs like however, nevertheless, therefore, as a result. Otherwise, these are some, common conjunctive adverbs. And the formula is what? First, now please keep in mind, conjunctive adverb at the start story is different. But I'm talking about conjunctive adverb inside a sentence. So first you will put semicolon, then will come conjunctive adverb, and after that comma will be there. This is how, of course, we'll be, using this, the semicolon. Number 3 and the last use of semicolon, when in one sentence, you are using information groups. For example, you are using people, their qualification, and their, the places they come from. Let's say you talk about, A.J. Smith. You want to talk about his department, let's say English. And you also want to talk about where he's actually from. Let's say he's from, let's say Reading. So 3 pieces of information. Then another person, his qualification or his department and his place of origin. Then third person, then fourth and fifth. These we call as information groups. If in one sentence, more than one information group you want to try, then of course information groups will be separated, not with the help of commas or colons, semicolons. Like example, you can take a look. The committee included Dr. Wall, Professor of Linguistics from Nottingham. Now this is one information group over. We put semicolon here. Then the second information group will start. And second is Virginia Willer, Professor of English from Manchester. Again, semicolon. Paul Anderson, Director of RadTech from Reading. Again, semicolon. And John Leach, Professor of Nursing from Edinburgh. So this is how, we use semicolon. We use semicolon where comma does not serve the purpose, where conjunctive, where coordinating or subordinating conjunctions, do not serve the purpose. Then, of course, we combine our sentences only with the help of a slim, supple semicolon, number 1. Number 2, of course, where you need a pause more, let's say, than this comma, then, of course, you'll use semicolon. Like the example of War and Peace, which I shared with you, that was actually the pause factor. More than comma pause was required, so we used semicolon. Third thing is, when inside a sentence you have information groups and you want to separate those information groups so that your reader may not be actually confused, he may not mix up the pieces of information, of course you separate information groups with the help of semicolon. This is what actually the use of semicolon. Use semicolon very carefully. It's of course difficult to everybody, frankly speaking. Let's move towards next punctuation mark, which is the colon. Colons are 2 dots, okay? And let's see where we use them. Number 1, we use colons to introduce a series. If you remember, when we were talking about comma, and over there the series factor was there when you want to use more than different items in a series, for example. We separate those items with the help of comma. But where we use colon, when we introduce that item, at the start of that series, in other words, colon will come first, and then items will come separated with the help of commas. This is how we, use this colon thing. Example, she has 3 things: money, brains, charm. She has 3 things. This is called starting the series. At the start of the series, she has 3 things. Colon will come. And then those 3 things will come. Let's say money, brains, charm. So money, brains, charm, of course, will be separated with the help of commas. This is the first function of, this colon. Of course, you also use colon this way, that when you talk about, let's say, the different solutions, let's say you want to talk about inside your essay. So you say, different solutions for this problem are as under. Right? And then, of course, you put colon over there, and one by one, you discuss those 3 solutions, and you, of course, analyze things. This next use of colon is separate subtitles. Let's say we are talking about colon at this time. Colon is a sub-point of major subject, punctuation, and if you want to mention these 2 things together, punctuation, colon, and this the colon item which we are studying, or the dash we are studying, or the comma we are studying. So these 2 will be separated with the help of course, this colon. If there is a book which has a dual title, major title and minor title, and you want to mention these 2 together, separated with the help of colon. The next use is set of a clause. When you want to use set of a clause, 2 clauses together, one flowing out from another one, of course, you use colon. For example, the rule is this: keep it simple. This is how we use colon. The next one, when you are writing formal letters, salutation. If you remember, I said informal salutations of letters are like Dear Imran, comma. But if it's a formal business letter, then we do not put comma over there. We put colon. Like Dear Imran, then colon will come. This is how we use colon. Let's move ahead. Apostrophe. Of course, we use apostrophe to show possessions, for example. Apostrophe, we use like comma and then S comes to show possessions. And then some artificial plurals are there and we use, of course, apostrophe. Examples for you. To form possessive, like Bill's bike, and comma is there. And second, contractions, like if the word was is not, and if we want to write isn't, comma will be there. And then plurals of symbols, for example, 1960s, or 2A's, or don'ts, or do's. These are artificial plurals and we use comma. Next comes the question mark. Question mark, of course, we use for two purposes. Number one, for interrogative sentences. At the end, you put question mark. Number two, if you want to express doubt inside your sentence, you can use question mark. Example number one, who is he? Question mark. And the second example, he weighs 250 pounds. This was a sentence. If you want to introduce doubt in it, you can say, he weighs 250 pounds. So the tone will be this way. And inside, of course, you can in bracket put question mark, which shows, that you are doubtful about the things. Exclamation marks. We use exclamation marks to show strong emotions. Like example, aroma is the best. And then exclamation mark will be there. Or if you want to praise, for example, wow, and you can put exclamation mark. This is the use of exclamation mark as punctuation mark in writing. The next one is quotation mark. Quotation mark, of course, we use for direct quotes. We use it for titles also, and we use it for special words or slangs. Like example, direct quote, he said hello. Now, hello is a direct quote. To separate direct quote from the remaining text, we put, inverted commas across, and which we say as quotation marks across. Then second one, titles. For example, he read King Lear. Now, King Lear is a name of a book, and we put inside commas. Third one, special words or slangs. Like he is nuts. Now, nuts is a special word or slang, so you can put inside commas. But if you're using even some term or some terminology, for example, so you can, make it a little prominent with the help of quotation mark. Let's move ahead towards parentheses. What is parentheses? Parentheses are brackets, where we use, number one, we use supplementary material. Like example, the map is good, and I want to add some supplementary material after map, so I can introduce parentheses over there, like the map, see illustration, or see table 1, or see appendix 1, or see the end of the chapter. I mean, you can direct your reader where they should go to for additional information. So you can put, parentheses, and you can give instruction. Then stronger than commas. There's a parentheses are stronger than commas. Like Joe, the bad boy, is dead. The appositives, as I have already mentioned before, appositives are inside, the commas. And if you want to, make it look stronger than commas, then you can highlight it with the help of brackets. Joe, the bad boy, is dead. This is how you highlight it. Let's go ahead towards the dash thing. Example, show duration. If you want to talk about duration, let's say Pakistan 1947 to 2007, if you want to omit TO2 as a word, so you can put a dash to look as a hyphen, 1947 dash 2007. So this is how, it will look. Second one, parenthetical material. Again, the same thing, like appositives. See, to show appositives, we can put commas. Number two, we can put brackets to look at stronger than comma. Number three, we can use dashes also, like the girl dash, the pretty one dash is here. So this is how we can introduce dashes, again for the same purpose, for parenthetical, like items. Number one, to show omissions. Let's say there are words, A said something for B, and now you want to tell somebody else, like, what A said to B, and there are some words which you don't want to use, for example. You don't want to repeat them, you want to say them for some reason. Over there, at the place of those words, you can put dashes. Example is, she called him a... No, here you can put dashes. The message for the reader will be that something which writer does not want to repeat. This will be, of course, the message over there. So this is the end of punctuation thing. Punctuations are important for our writing. The way, voices, bodies and pauses and intonations are important in speaking. They help, these voices and bodies and pauses and intonations, they help the listeners to understand what speaker is talking about. Exactly the same way when you want to create the same effects in your writing, because writer is not there for the reader to explain things. So the same effects when you want to create in your writing, you create with the help of punctuations. I hope you understood different punctuation marks and uses. I try to, illustrate these uses with the help of, lots of examples. Try these at home and, learn, how we, of course, use for different, places and for different, purposes. With this, let's call it a day. Thank you very much. Take a look of yourself. See you. Bye-bye.